guys! So I have a special guest here today, and that is because I've been requested a lot to do a certain kind of video on something that I don't have a lot of experience with, and it is anxiety. And I've also been super requested for a video on depression as well, in the advice video style. And those kind of videos make me a little nervous to try and give advice on, because I feel like if it's not the right kind of advice, then it could do more harm than good. For today, we're focusing on anxiety, and I have my best friend here, Samantha, who does suffer from anxiety. So I just thought that she should come on here to help me with this video, because I personally have never experienced it. I mean, other than regular anxiety of stress, things like that. We all go through that. But to have an anxiety disorder clinically diagnosed and taking medication for it. So how long have you had it?
I would say clinically 3 years, but cumulatively from when I started really noticing side effects and symptoms and the onset of it, I would say probably at least 10. Yeah. Easily, at least 10.
Since you were like 13?
Oh, easily.
What kind of things mostly trigger it for you?
Some of the things that trigger it for me would have to be anything where I'm not in control of the situation. The fact that there's traffic in the morning on the way to work and I'm trying to get to work on time. The fact that I have a really big filing that I'm working on for work and it's just consuming me, and the deadline for when it has to be to court is fastly approaching, and I can't get it done in time.
Financial situations.
Financials, you know, unfortunately for myself, and I'm sure for a lot of people out there, I've had to constantly have to budget. It almost kind of wears you down in some ways, and so I think in those instances the exhaustion can maybe trigger my anxiety, because I just get so tired of wanting to try.
Do you feel like that affects your outside life as well? Because I know you're very neat. I wouldn't say OCD, because I don't think you're technically diagnosed with that.
No. Yeah, I think I have come to the conclusion that, well, if I can't control what's on the outside of my front door, outside of my apartment, then I can at least have as much control with inside my apartment, as far as style, as far as where things are placed, as far as what things look like, as far as where I keep things, and whether the dishes are done, or whether, you know, the trash has been taken out. It's like, I think that's kind of like my calming to the storm, because as soon as I step foot outside, I don't have control over what anyone else does, what anyone else thinks, what anyone else says. So in order to kind of find my calming to that,
you like to clean.
I like to clean.
She likes to clean.
Cleaning is kind of like my source for escape.
How can you tell that it's gonna come about?
It's almost like it now happens so frequently, it's almost kind of like subconscious. Like I almost don't feel it coming on.
You feel like it's a constant almost?
I would have to say probably more often than not. I had to increase my medication that I was on for it, which we did in a gradual progression. I am afraid that it will have to increase again in dose. But first of all, I'd have to say, do I notice a difference being on the medication? Yes, as far as the extent in which the severity of the anxiety is, I do notice a difference. The anxiety isn't as intense. You know, just feeling like my heart's racing very fast, increase in breath. I feel like something really heavy, an elephant, is sitting on my chest. I just feel like I am losing control of my surroundings. Like, oh my gosh, what happens if this happens? What happens if this happens? Like, what am I gonna do? How do I react? When I start feeling really anxious, I tend to reach out to my close loved ones for reassurance. Like, there's been times where I've had to call Sarah and say, Sarah, I just really need you to reassure me that this is normal, because I'm freaking out.
And they're normal, like, everyday things for most people, but for her, it's almost like a panic response. And someone calm needs to be there to be like, you know, it's okay, it's normal. Like,
because most people wouldn't even probably think twice about what I'm freaking out about. And I'm sure Sarah can relate.
Do you feel like that helps you the most, is to reach out to someone?
Initially, yes, but I've had to kind of do some self-talk, which has also helped, in addition to the medication and in addition to reaching out to a family member or a close friend. I've found that sometimes I just need to tell myself, I'm not going to look more than 15 minutes ahead, because if I look any further than that, it's just sometimes too much. Like, it's too overwhelming. I don't need to think about 2 weeks from now. And in addition to looking not more than 15 minutes ahead, also trying to remind myself, like, okay, Sam, for example, I'm moving next month. because my lease is up and everything. So for me, obviously moving can be stressful. Expensive, you know, just costly. I have to move my dogs, and Sterling doesn't do very well with that, and so I'm concerned with him and how he'll do, and you know, they're gonna be with Auntie Sarah that day. But I definitely sometimes have to think like, okay, is this going to matter in a year from now? Like, is this going to have this effect on me in a year? Or will I even forget that this has even happened?
But like with the moving thing, I was like, you're not even thinking about the last time you moved, are you?
Nope.
Like, it doesn't matter to you now. It was stressful at the time, but you're over it now.
Yep.
And you'll be just like that once you're in your new place.
Even, you know, crying sometimes doesn't alleviate the tension that just is arising. I know what some of my triggers are. Like, you know, I try not to put myself in situations where I feel like it will cause me anxiety, because there are some things instinctively I just know going into it, like, okay, this is gonna cause me some tension. This is gonna cause some anxiety, anxiousness. So I tend to avoid those situations. So if you know what your triggers are, maybe either avoiding them or, you know, kind of mentally giving yourself a like preparation into it. Seeing if there's a way to either go about that approach differently, or, you know, if there's a way to avoid it, or if there's a way to do it with a friend, go into it kind of in a different, approach it differently. If there are situations that are unavoidable, which there are going to be, trying not to look too far ahead in the situation, trying to stay focused in the moment, because looking too far ahead can be scary sometimes. Also just remembering like, okay, yeah, this exam is going to probably suck, and yeah, it's going to flare up my anxiety, but is this exam going to matter, you know, in retrospect to a year from now? Because if it's not, is it really something that should really stress you out so extensively? Right,
and those will still come about. You'll still feel anxiety about those somewhat small things, which might seem large.
And it's normal to have that, which I found more recently that writing things down really helps put things in perspective.
Do you mean like a list or more of a journal?
It could be a list, it could be bullet points, it could just be notations, it could be actual like journal entries, it could be writing something and then ripping it up. I mean, whatever is most comfortable for you, and only you will know what's best.
What would you say to people who might be younger and they think that they might have anxiety, but they're like afraid to tell people, or afraid of telling their parents if, you know, they're in high school? Like, do you feel like it's something to be ashamed of, or that you're embarrassed about?
I'm not embarrassed about it, and I'm not ashamed of it. It took me a while to tell a few people that I was on medication for it, just because the concept of medication for anything
that can be
taken
taboo,
that can be taken the wrong way, which is frustrating because it's really not anything to do with you as a person. No. I mean, everybody needs medication for different things. It doesn't define who you are. It doesn't.
Nor does the disorder.
No. More people have it than, you know, you're led to believe in your day-to-day life.
Definitely.
A lot of people don't know, even to this day, you know, that I have had anxiety that I'm on medication for. I mean, it's not something that I advertise to, you know, people. I've learned as time's gone on, with experience comes wisdom, and so I do feel like as I've come into these situations and these things, I've been able to identify what triggers are. I've been able to identify what makes me the most like anxious and worked up. I think if you need to reach out and you have questions, I totally think ask.
By all means, ask.
If it's anybody, even if it's like Sarah, or if it's just, I mean, I've got Instagram, I've got things like that. You can always ask me.
Yeah, direct Instagram pictures or whatever, I'm sure.
I am totally, because I've been in some pretty intense anxiety situations, and more recently too because of a health issue that I have. So for me, it's definitely been intense, to say the least. So I can definitely understand, relate, or give whatever tips I can offer.
It's not something that you should feel like you can't tell someone, or, you know, if you have a close friend, tell them or ask them, you know, to talk, or your parents. If you feel like you can't talk to your parents, then find something online. I'm sure there's lots of forums and things like that for information if you can't go to a doctor, because I know not everyone has that opportunity to go to a doctor to get medication, or even a psychologist or a therapist or anything. Don't be afraid to admit it to yourself or anybody around you, because if they really are close to you and they truly love you, they'll accept it about you.
Well, and you wouldn't want somebody in your life that's not going to accept that about you, and that's taken some time to really learn, like, be who you are, and if those people can't accept you, like, why waste your time? I mean, if they're not going to stand by you through this, what makes you think they're going to stand by you through anything? So
if you have any questions or any advice yourself, go ahead and leave it in the comments, either for me, for Sam, for other people reading it. I hope this was informational for you and helps you know, anyone out there who feels like they may have it or who does have it, feel okay about it and that it's not a big deal. Like Sam's coming on here admitting it to a lot of people to help you guys. So I hope it helps, even though...
And even if it can help 1 or 2 people, like that to me is an incentive to want to share my experiences, because those 1 or 2 people might have needed something like this to listen to and to hear to make it that much better for them to cope with their situation. I
hope this wasn't too heavy of a video for you guys. I know it's a little bit different from what I normally do, but it definitely was easier to talk about it because I personally can't speak for it, for the disorder, so I needed a voice for it. So I will have Sam's channel listed down below because she does videos, in case you didn't know that. I assume by now everyone knows that. So I'll have that listed down below, as well as her Instagram if you want to directly contact her. You can do that through there. And I hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye.